Hello and welcome to a new episode of Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers podcast. So before we go into what we're going to talk about today, let me take a moment to thank you and celebrate you, because as you know, or maybe some of you are not aware, this podcast was only born June this year, so we're only live 8-9 weeks, and in this short period of time we went from 0 listens per week up to 650 listens per week, and I'm blown away by your feedback, by your reflections, the comments I'm receiving, and the success that it is having. And it is down to you guys, like listening to it, sharing it, and this really warms my heart because I really feel how important this is for so many women. I know that if I go back a few years, if I had such a resource, if I had found such a resource when I was in the middle of the worst of it, that would have helped me so much. So I'm really blown away, and I'm so grateful to all of you. I want to celebrate you and appreciate you, and keep sharing it. And if you also feel inspired to leave a review, do that. That helps massively, helps the movement growing, because I want this to be a family. A movement is not just me talking to you from my room up here. It's a dialogue with you and as many women as we can reach, so that they can receive. We can all have the support. You all can have the support that you need. And so thank you, and thank you for all of that. Now, with that said, today I want to give you 4 tips to survive a visit with your narcissistic mother / family, because some of us don't have just one member of the family like behaving that way. We have a few. So it's really, and some of us have managed to move away, like we have our own life, like we live in a different house from our home place, but we still have to go and visit. We still have to go there. Some of us might have obligations that we feel we can't actually get out from, like if you have to assist your mother, for example, if she's old, if she's sick, if there's some reasons why you have to be there quite often, and these visits are really tiring, and they're getting the toll on you, that you're coming home and you're like absolutely exhausted, and it takes you weeks to recover every time. But again, if you're listening and you're like, well, this does not apply to me, I'm living at home, I'm still living close contact with my mother all the time, well, these tips can still work. If anything, they're really even more important, because you are in that environment all the time, and so you really need to double down to make sure that you can put some distance between yourself and the situation, create some space for yourself. That is really, really important. So, and I have decided to do this episode today because I've had this experience exactly a couple of weeks ago. I haven't been home to my home place. I live in a different country. I'm in Ireland. I'm originally from Italy, so I have been away from my family and my home place for 4 years. And my last visit was very, very brief. It was like a 2 days visit. So we can say I've been away for a long time. And I have had interactions, of course, with my family, phone calls and different things, and some members have come up to visit me, but it's different when you go back to your home place, the place where you grew up, the place where most of the abuse took place. And no matter how far along you are in your inner work, in your healing work, no matter how many incredibly powerful techniques you've learned and you're practicing all the time, going back home triggers. It's that place that holds all the stories, the memories that you mightn't even consciously still hold in your mind, things that you mightn't even remember consciously, but they are still there in your subconscious, and when you go back home, this can be triggered. On top of having the people there that are actively still completely unaware of their behavior, they're completely unaware of what they're doing. Every time that they open their mouth, every time they say something, that they don't know what they're doing, but they're doing it. And they're being hurtful, like, I don't know, an elephant in a china shop. Because you are open and you're sensitive and you've come home to your sensitivity, you've done a lot of work, you've created your space, you've created some kind of balance in your life, and then you go there and everything can get shattered, okay? Even just for that period. And again, this can be applied to anyone who's in a similar situation as myself. So you've been away for a long time and you have to go full immersion for, like, it was a 2 weeks visit, so it was quite intense. Or you're living just down the road from your mother, you've created your space, but you still need to go there often because she needs your assistance all the time. And again, this might also apply if you're living in the same house. So take what you need and use it in your own situation. As always, I can speak a little bit general. I'm not coaching you one-on-one. You're not part of the circle. So we're not here speaking to your specific situation, but you can take what serves you in this moment. So what can happen when we go back to the environment that is not our own? We go back to the house of our mother, our family home place. It's very easy to fall back into old roles. If you were like the person that everyone goes to and the peacekeeper of the family, like I was, for example, it's really simple, or it can happen that you go back and immediately everyone is expecting you to behave exactly the same way you would have behaved when you were there before all the work, before the awareness, before understanding that your family or your mother were narcissists, before all of that, to fall back right in the same role and in the same behaviors. And that role is still live in you. It's familiar, okay? There's a part of you that still knows that and recognizes it, so it's easy to fall back into it, and you will feel the consequences much stronger though, because this is not the role you are playing in your normal life. You're being more and more yourself, so it's gonna feel so wrong to do that, and at the same time it can just happen, and you don't know how you fell back into behaving that way. You've had all these incredible resolutions, you've done all this work, you've been talking to your therapist, to your coach, to your support group, you've done all of this, and then boom, and you're back to square one. It can feel really, really difficult, and it's really easy in a situation like that to get very angry at yourself, to beat yourself up because you fell back into the loop and you should have known better, kind of thing. Okay, so which doesn't help. So you're coming back not only exhausted by the draining of the energy that you've been giving and giving and giving, but also you're beating yourself up, you're feeling like a failure. You somehow failed your coach, your therapist, you failed your current family maybe because you fell back into the trap. So I want to remind you, I want to tell you that it's quite understanding and it's understandable, and it's quite normal. The kitchen sink, the home place kind of holds that power. Okay, now is that undefeatable? It's not. Can you actually have a completely, totally different experience? Yes, and we're gonna go into that, so bear with me for a moment. But I just want to say that if you go and you do get triggered and you do get exhausted and you do fall back into old roles, that happens. That happens unless we do very specific things to make sure that that doesn't happen, that we are really aware that that's a risk. So that's why I want to say that to you. Being aware that that is what can happen is going to help you preventing that or minimizing that. It might still happen to a degree, but it's going to be a lot less. And the more you do that, the more you're going to feel like you can best this. I also want to say that in some cases, that's really, really, really challenging. So depending on the level of abuse that goes on in your family home, depending on the level of narcissism, sometimes it's best not to go, at least for periods of time. I know in this visit of mine, although my family has quite a number of narcissists in it, but the main one, my mother, was not present. And that was a conscious decision of ours to go for the first time after so many years when she was not there. And that is because of the boundaries I've set. I've been no contact for a while now. The level of abuse is such that I feel there's gonna come a time where I will face my mother, and more I feel like I can do this, but still there is no need to put myself in that situation just yet. So it's really important also to understand that if you decide not to go because the level of abuse that goes on is such, it's not a defeat either. It's not a failure. It's not like you're trying to be the hero that can go into whatever battle and come back victorious no matter the wounds. That's not the game here. The game is to keep your heart safe. You've been through enough. You've been through enough. And every day that you are waking up and having a good day and moving through your life, feeling more and more yourself, it's a massive success. So you don't have to put yourself through those situations. So with that said, let's see 4 tips that I've put into practice this time around going down, and this was the first time I actually got to put them into practice fully. I have done it when I've got visits. So people came here to my space to visit me. I've used this system. But I hadn't had the chance to use this system going back to my home place, and it worked really, really, really well. I've had visits before that were a disaster. They were absolutely exhausting, and it took me weeks and weeks to go back to my own self to find any bit of routine again in my life when I came home. And yeah, so this time it was actually a really good trip. And so you can turn this around. You can actually turn it around. You can turn it around as far as having a good experience. And I know that can sound like, oh, she doesn't know my family. Like, there is no way it's ever going to be a good experience. I want to challenge that. I want to challenge you on that. Again, without forcing it. I'm not saying you have to force it. You need to do what you feel, and you need to take one step at a time. Maybe making your visit short at the beginning, and stay with what feels comfortable, and do one little bit at a time. But I'm going to challenge you, because it can be a good experience. Because it's ultimately down to you. It's ultimately down to you, especially if you have to do, like, if you are in a position where you have to do it for some reasons within your life, within your experience. You have people that need your assistance. You are the only person that can help. I know we have episodes where we go through different boundary settings and ways to do that in the best way possible for you, so you can go back and look at those episodes. But still, you can turn it around and transform it and make it into as good as an experience as it can be given the circumstances. Okay, so so let's go into it. So number one, before you go, the preparation starts before you go. Okay, so whatever time you have ahead in the planning of your visit, you start as soon as you can, as soon as you know that you have to go. And if you are going regularly already, the time in between visits, take that time to set a simple grounding practice that you know when you are at your home place, when you're visiting, you can easily do. Okay, so this can be anything that works for you, something that you're already doing would be best. But again, feel free to explore, especially if you have time between now and your next visit. Whatever it is that works for you. It could be journaling, it could be meditation. There's some amazing embodiment practices you could use. Spending time in nature. It can be vigorous exercise, it can be yoga. You can go and use the free self-love practice that is available on my website. Go check it out. That's a 20 minutes practice, so it's easy to do, and you can access that. Once you've subscribed, you can access that anytime you want. It's gonna be there for you, so you can go check that out. Anything that you know that when you get to your home place, you can easily do. Okay, I know for myself, there was no point. When I'm here at home, I might do an hour between embodiment practices, yoga practice, my own meditation, stuff like that. There is no point in me say that I'm gonna do an hour when I'm there, because of the schedule that I had, especially this time around. But I could easily do 20 minutes. That was achievable and realistic for me. So that's what I said. I'm gonna do that, and it's gonna happen every day, no matter what. Give yourself a time if you can, but make sure that it happens. Get up half an hour earlier, before everyone is even up, if you have to. That's what I did. But make sure you get that in, because these practices, however amazing, that they don't last. Okay, like, I know it sounds really harsh to say that, but I know, for example, I've been doing yoga for so many years. If I don't do yoga for a week or 2 weeks, I get stiff. Okay, it doesn't matter that I've done yoga for 20 years. I'm not just gonna naturally remain flexible for the rest of my days if I stop now. So if you have a practice that you do habitually and you then go home in a challenging environment, so remember, you're already going to a place that is extra challenging and extra triggering, and then you take away that grounding practice, you're going to plummet very quickly. Okay, so it's really important to keep that. Remember, discipline in that is gonna give you the freedom, it's gonna give you the happiness, it's gonna give you all that you want and desire. Is the discipline. It's really, really important. And it's very easy to go to places like your home place and go, I so don't feel like doing such stuff now. Everything is weighing on me so much. The last thing I feel like doing is meditating or doing my yoga or doing whatever. But it's really essential. It's really key. And whatever that practice is, again, it doesn't have to be something crazy long or that takes a lot of effort. It's whatever it is that works for you. If it's journaling, for example, you can use like prompts like appreciations of your day, or going through you can set intentions for your day. You can keep it positive, trying to reinforce where you've gotten so far, that no matter what gets triggered, no one can take away from you where you've gotten so far on your journey. Actually, remember that just came right now, but yeah, it's really key. No matter what happens in this visit, however short or long, no one can take away from you where you've gotten so far. Okay. So 1, set a simple grounding practice that you can easily do regularly every day during your visit. Number 2 is find ways to carve some time for yourself. And I know that this seems a repetition of what I just said in tip number 1, but it's not. Because here we're talking about time to yourself where you don't have to do anything in particular, but you can just chill. You can just do something that you enjoy. Okay, I went to Italy. Time for me was like, you just go downtown and get an ice cream. That's not some major meditation or some major practice or anything like that. It's just purely enjoyable. And I'm just going to do that. Now, in my case, I had my husband and my children with me. So time meant go with them somewhere, like leave the rest of the family to do their own things and just take time for ourselves. That's also important. If you're traveling with your current family as you're going back to your home place, it's really important to carve time where just you and your partner, or you and your partner and children, are together without the rest of the family, without your mother there, because that's important. It's really hard for your partner or your children to see you as you fall back into previous roles. It can be really weird. And it can be quite shocking, especially for your children that don't have all the understanding of the rationale behind it. They just see an incredible difference in you, or they see you exhausted, or they see you drained, or you don't have time for them anymore because you're completely sucked in to the situation. So it's really important. So I guess if you are going with your current family back to your origin place, You gotta find ways to carve some time just for yourself. I don't know, just go sit down, read a book. Again, it could match tip 1. It could be one of those things. If that is really what you enjoy, then double down on those. Or anything that is just yourself. And it can be a few minutes. It doesn't have to be hours. But a few minutes, really helpful. And then also carve some time just with your partner or with your partner and children within the visit. Yeah, that's it about tip number 2. So let's go to number 3. This is really important. Setting what we call if-thens. So if such and such happen, then this is my response. If my mother tells me such and such, then I answer this way, or I tell her no, or whatever your then is. And why is that important? As we said, you're going into an environment with a lot of triggers. They're gonna come at you from all angles. And especially if it's not just your mother, but there's a whole bunch of people that you're going to, there can be flying monkeys coming at you from all angles. I've experienced that in this last visit, so it can become very intense. And that means if you're not prepared for that, you're gonna end up to remain grounded, okay? To remain in your center as much as possible, you're gonna have to use a lot of willpower. Because we know that we don't find it so easy to set boundaries with our family, with our narcissistic mother. We don't find it super easy to say no. We don't find it super easy to respond, to keep protected, and at the same time interact. We don't find these things so easy. We've been trained to do just the opposite, to completely dissolves ourselves. If you have a narcissistic mother, your sense of self has been trained out of you. There's no boundaries. None of that is good. You're just a doormat, or you do whatever you're told by your mother, and you take whatever crap she throws at you. And that's part of the abusive and traumatizing experience of having a narcissistic mother. So even if we've done work and we've healed, we're along the journey, or whatever part of the journey you are, when you go back, all of that gets triggered. And because it's not easy to set the boundaries, to respond, to keep yourself grounded, to do it, you use your willpower. You go like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and you do that day 1, and you do that day 2, maybe, or you do that for the first 10 minutes or for the first 15 minutes, and then by the end of the day you're drained, because willpower ends. Okay, it's not an infinite resource that we have. It actually just goes down and down and down until it's done with, and you need to recharge. And that's how you come home exhausted, because you have to use a lot of that. When you said if-thens previously, so you've already prepared that in your mind, if you're traveling with someone like your partner, you can discuss this. That can really be helpful, because he can help you in that way. You are saving on your willpower, and you can use then the willpower when there's like exceptional circumstances that you hadn't predicted, because you can't predict it all. I had one particular situation this time around that I definitely did not predict. It was like one person that it's part of the family, and it isn't, but it's there nonetheless. And I didn't realize how toxic her presence was until I was deeply in it. And that threw me a little bit. So there was a lot of willpower needed there. And I had no if-thens for this situation. I do now. But these things can happen, we can't predict it all. But if you know that there's going to be some behaviors, like I know, for example, that I knew that there were going to be some people that were going to advocate for my mother and attack me on having to contact her and being a bad person for not contacting her. I knew that was going to happen. I was prepared. So for that, it was like, if that person tells me then this is going to be my response. And it was there. It was laid out for me. I was prepared. So when that happened, that was the answer. If I'm asked to, like, another thing that happens in my family very often is I'm asked to be away from my partner so that they can target me separately, because in previous experiences, I have been obviously weaker by myself. The presence of my partner was somewhat a shield. It was helping. So if I'm asked to be somewhere by myself, then I'm going to reply such and such. So to be able to set if-thens. For example, if you've said that you're going to do your grounding practice at a certain time of day, and you've declared that, you've went, okay, I'm going to be here with you guys, but between this time and that time I'm not available. So if I'm asked to do something that seems really important to everyone in that time, then I'm going to say, no, I'm sorry. Well, without I'm sorry, actually, no, I'm only going to be available after whatever time. So if-thens, really important. So you're able to respond to the situations, and also if-thens within, because we can't control the outer environment a lot. You can predict some things. I know the patterns of my family. I know how certain things are going to play out. And so I can set some if-thens. And pretty accurately, I know I'm on the ball. But definitely you can set if-thens on inside. So if my mother starts getting abusive or starts saying, then I'm going to leave the room, or I'm going to say, no, this is not appropriate. Or you can you can control what you are going to do in circumstances. That part no one can take from you. If she tells me I'm useless at my job, then I'm going to double down and remind myself how amazing I have done. And it can be an internal job. It doesn't have to be spoken. Sometimes often enough, actually, with a narcissistic mother, the less you speak, the better, because anytime it's like in the boundary setting process. Anytime you justify, anytime you explain, anytime you answer, it only gives her more ammunition to put you down. But you can do that as an internal process. And you can literally just excuse yourself and go somewhere else, and then journal on all that you've achieved, all that you've done, and just reinforce the positivity in your system, and remind yourself. That's another if-then. If she starts behaving in a certain way, then double down, remind yourself, she is a narcissist. That's just what they do. It has nothing to do with you. You're off the hook. Play around, and again, set these if-thens before. The preparation happens before. those cannot be determined or set when you're already in the situation. What can happen in the situation is that you can take note of the ones that you hadn't thought of, and so you have them for next time. So this is wonderful, because each time you're going, especially so if you have to do visits very, very often, each time you're going to be you're going to be learning more for the new ones that you will need. Okay, so each visit is going to build on the one before, and you're going to learn more and more each time. Actually, it becomes a really cool learning experience for you, and also it shows you how amazing you are. It's like you're going into the lion's den, but you are prepared. You have your grounding practice. You are going to set your boundaries and have some time for yourself. Go back to the episode on setting boundaries. That episode is one of those key episodes. It's a lot is based on that. So go back and listen to that. And you're gonna have your if-thens ready. It's like you have your own, not ammunitions because you're gonna hurt anyone else, but you have your response, and it's there and it's ready. Practice it. Use your partner, use your support group. That's what we do in the women's circle as well. It's like we practice these things. We do that in the one-on-one. We practice so that when you are in the situation, you have it there. It's there. And the more you practice, the more it's going to be there. Tip number 4, and I can't leave this one out ever. It's be kind with yourself. When the unexpected situation with the person that I didn't quite know how toxic she was happened, I spent an hour in tears, and I was so, like, after the hurt, she really reached me and it hurt, and I was in tears. But after that, there was another hour more, well, actually more, a lot more hours, where I was so angry at myself. It was like, how did I let that reach me like that? Have I not learned anything? Why am I still making the same mistakes? Why am I still... And so it was like a river of beating myself up. And again, even if you go into that, I will go back to be kind to yourself. But I just want to let you know or remind you that you are going to get triggered. That is going to happen. When you go back to your home place, when you go visiting your narcissistic mother, and you go back into that environment, you are going to get triggered. And it's not a failure on your part when that happens. So keep loving yourself. Keep being kind to yourself. It's really, really important, because it's just not helpful. Really, it's just not helpful. When you add to the situation that happens and hurts you, and then you add hours of beating yourself up, that doesn't really help you, does it? Like, it's as simple as that. It just doesn't help. And it actually plays the game of the narcissist, really. Because that's what they want. That's what they're going in for. And I'm not the one that is going to give them that satisfaction. I don't know about you, but hell no. So be kind to yourself. Remember that if you get triggered, that just is part of the experience. And each time that you get triggered, when you're sitting with it, when you're feeling it, and there's gonna be tears, there's gonna be hurt, that's part of the process. And again, having that safe space that you've created, those moments by yourself, That's the grounding practice that you're going to keep doing throughout the entire experience. All of that is going to give you the ground and to sort of hold space for yourself. Remember, you have missed that motherly energy in your life, that nurturer, that beautiful person that hugs you and that holds space for you, and that hasn't been there. But you have it in yourself. That energy is in you to give yourself. And so if your inner child, that part of you, gets triggered, there is another part of you that's important to remember. The part of you that got triggered is only one part. Okay, you have a million parts in yourself, and that part got triggered. There is another part in you that is bigger. Yeah, it's bigger and can hold space, can hold you, can literally embrace the part that got triggered and go, it's okay. It's fine that happened. I know you're angry. I know you're hurt, but come here. I'm just gonna hold you here, and it's okay if you need to cry, but you can do this. And that part is there. It's there. You can access it in any moment. So let's recap for a moment. So when you go back, when you have to visit your home place, your narcissistic mother, whether you have to do it often or once in a blue moon, or whether you're living in there all the time, there's 4 simple things that you can do to make the entire experience a lot easier. And then the more you practice these things, the easier and easier and easier it will get. 1 is setting a simple grounding practice that you can easily do. Be realistic, make it achievable. Number 2, find ways to carve some time for yourself. And if you're traveling with your current family, carve some time alone with them too. 3, set if-thens. As many as you can. Write them down. Even if you feel like you're being ridiculous and you've said 100 of them, that's brilliant. You go and do that. And practice. Number 4, be kind with yourself. Remember that if you're getting triggered, that's not a failure on your part. That's just part of the experience and you're learning from it. You're getting stronger each time. And that's important to remember. And I want to remind you again, if you decide to use it as the grounding practice that you want to bring along with you, there is a free practice on my website that you can access anytime you want. So there is no limit to how many times you can do that. You can do it every day. You can do it multiple times a day, as much as you want. The more the better. The more you can practice, the more grounded you are, the easier things are going to be. It's actually pretty simple. I know sometimes it feels like it's so blooming hard. I really get that. There's times where I'm like, really, why do I have to do all of this? I mean, it should be simpler. But ultimately, it is actually simple. If you have the discipline to practice, then it's going to be much, much easier, the experience. And also, I again want to remind you, you don't have to do this alone. We're building up to the circles. The intention is to start in September. So currently there's waiting lists open. So if you are signing up, if you're applying for the Women's Circle, and then you book your free call with me, you'll see all of that on the website. Then you get on your waiting list to be ready for September for the new Women's Circles. So there's support out there. You don't have to do that on your own. Women's Circles are incredibly powerful places to get support, to heal, and to gain strength, a lot of strength. So yeah, go check that out. And And again, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. You are the one that are creating this move. So I'm really appreciating all of that. And yeah, let's keep going. Let's make it bigger. Lots of love, and bye for now.